Every nation believes it controls its own wealth. Every citizen believes their economy is guided by elected leaders. Every government claims to be the architect of its own prosperity. But what if none of this is true? What if hidden behind speeches, budgets, and policies, there exists a set of secret banking protocols, agreements never publicly voted on, never printed on ballots, and rarely understood that quietly determine the fate of every national economy on Earth? What if these protocols reshaped wealth so subtly, so silently, that entire generations never noticed the shift happening right beneath them? Today we uncover the system no one was meant to fully understand. Fast forward to the 1600s. War was expensive. Empires were hungry, and governments desperately needed reliable funding. Enter the Bank of Amsterdam, then the Bank of England, and later similar institutions across Europe. Their creation introduced a new protocol, one far more powerful than anything before: the protocol of centralized monetary authority. Instead of governments issuing money directly, central banks, often with private shareholders, issued it on their behalf. This changed everything. Money supply became controlled by protocol, not politics. Interest rates became mathematical tools, not democratic decisions. Debt became the backbone of national growth, and governments became structurally tied to their bankers. But the most important shift was psychological. People trusted bank-issued money more than government promises. Trust became programmable, and protocols control trust. The 20th century unleashed a new scale of financial chaos: World War I. The Great Depression, World War II. Nations printed uncontrollably. Currencies collapsed, global trade fractured. To prevent future chaos, world leaders met in 1944 at a quiet hotel in New Hampshire, the Bretton Woods Conference. This was not just an agreement. It was the moment when secret financial protocols were formalized globally. Under Bretton Woods, the US dollar became the central reference point. Other currencies pegged themselves to the dollar. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, and World Bank were created. The world now operated under a single layered protocol. The US issues dollars, gives the world pegs to dollars, gives the IMF, polices the system. But here's the hidden twist. These decisions were made by delegates, economists, and banking officials, not by citizens. And the entire global economy became anchored to a structure the public never voted on. This concentration of monetary influence was unprecedented. The Bretton Woods system collapsed in 1971 when President Nixon ended the gold convertibility of the dollar. This triggered a new wave of secret protocols, this time not written in treaties, but practiced silently by central banks worldwide. 3 core protocols emerged. 1. Fiat money. Expansion money became a political tool, printed without external limits. 2. Coordinated interest rate manipulation. Central banks cut or raised rates in patterns that citizens didn't understand, but which determined everything from housing prices to national debt burdens. 3. Swap lines and liquidity backstops. The largest central banks, especially the US Federal Reserve, created secret emergency channels to rescue financial institutions globally. These weren't announced on national TV. They were agreements between bankers, executed during crises, often without public debate. This was the era when protocols fully replaced markets. Markets looked free. They behaved controlled. Governments tried to escape this banking-driven structure. Inflation targeting fiscal responsibility laws, exchange rate controls, budget balancing, independent central bank mandates. Every fix failed. Because the global financial system is now interconnected through protocols that cannot be undone without collapsing the entire architecture. 3 examples illustrate this trap. Example 1. Japan's endless stimulus. Japan printed so much money that the Bank of Japan now owns half the country's government bonds. If they stop printing, the market collapses. Example 2. Europe's ECB dependency. Eurozone countries cannot print individually. Their survival depends on the European Central Bank, a protocol they can't abandon. Example 3. Developing nations and the IMF. Countries in crisis must follow IMF protocols. Austerity, currency, devaluation, public asset sales. Their sovereignty becomes conditional. Once a nation enters the system, it cannot exit without destabilizing itself. Protocols win, every time. Today, the real power doesn't lie in elections, parliaments, or cabinets. It lies in Basel banking regulations, SWIFT messaging standards, BIS capital requirements, Federal Reserve swap lines, IMF lending rules. Central bank independence protocols, shadow banking liquidity rules, most citizens have never heard of these. But these protocols decide whether their currency inflates, how expensive their rent becomes, whether their country can borrow, how fast their economy grows, whether banks fail or whether savings evaporate. And the numbers reveal how deep this system runs. Global debt. $300 trillion global derivatives. $1 quadrillion plus 80% of global payments run through systems created by less than 10 institutions. Central banks bought $25 trillion in assets after 2008. 60% of the world's reserves are still held in dollars. These protocols don't just influence wealth, they determine it. And they quietly reshaped every nation on earth. Modern national wealth isn't created by governments, it's shaped by global financial protocols designed decades ago. Central banks, not parliaments, now steer economic destiny through tools the public never approved. The world runs on systems that are coordinated privately, executed silently, and understood by only a small financial elite. The biggest illusion of modern economics is that nations are independent. But the real architecture of global wealth is controlled by protocols so deeply embedded, so widely adopted, and so heavily defended, that even governments cannot break free from them. The question isn't whether the system will change, but what happens when the protocols guiding the world eventually reach their breaking point. If you want more investigations into the hidden machinery behind global power, economics, and financial influence, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because in the next video, we reveal something even more unsettling. How global wealth is transferred silently, without laws, without votes, and without borders.